Hey, what's up? This is Sully from Godsmack. Strap on those boots, baby, because you are now in the trenches of the war room with the one and only Mistress Carrie right here on the Mistress Carrie podcast.
What's up? This is Joe Rogan, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Her hair so lovely, pretty eyes.
Hey, this is Brent from Shinedown, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie. Hey, Carrie, go put your bra on, girl.
Hey, this is Steven Tyler, and you be listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
What's up? This is Aaron from Stain, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Hi, everybody. This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters, and you're listening to the one, the only Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is David from the band Disturbed, and you're listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
Hi, Bruce Dickinson here from Iron Maiden. Yes, indeed, Miss Whiplash herself, Mistress Carrie, is here to unchain your brain.
Hi, this is Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You're listening to Mistress Carrie.
This is Dennis Leary. You are listening to my favorite, Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is Corey from Stone Sour, and you have the privilege of listening to Mistress Carrie.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
Hey, it's Mistress Carrie, reporting for duty from MCHQ for episode 187 of the Mistress Carrie podcast. And before we get to this week's guest, ZAC MALOY from the Nixons, I want to remind you about everything you can find online at mistresscarrie.com. Not only can you find every episode of the Mistress Carrie podcast and every situation report, but every episode of my video show, Cocktails in the War Room. You can also stay up to date with all of the rock shows coming through New England in the event calendar. You can click the Message the Studio button to send me a message right here in MCHQ. Read my blog, check out my photo galleries, and do some shopping in the online Mistress Carrie store. Find all that and more at mistresscarrie.com. This week, my guest is ZAC MALOY, who I have known for decades. ZAC is the founding member of the rock band The Nixons and a member of Four Horsemen Music. His songwriting credits include songs for Carrie Underwood, Tim McGraw, Blake Shelton, Jake Owen, Three Doors Down, Skillet, Bowling for Soup, Barenaked Ladies, Dorothy, Saliva, Black Veil Brides, Sponge, Tyler Bryant and the Shakedown, Lilith Czar, Daughtry, and Theory of a Deadman. And number one hits including Carrie Underwood's Temporary Home, Skillet's American Noise, and Shinedown's Atlas Falls. I caught up with ZAC just before the end of the year to talk about songwriting and inspiration, the differences between writing and producing his own music versus working with other artists, touring, family life, and the future plans for the Nixons. It was so great to reconnect with ZAC, who is one of many guests on the show who are making rock and roll in Music City, Nashville. So allow me to introduce you to ZAC MALOY from the Nixons. Oh my God, ZAC MALOY. Oh my God, ZAC MALOY.
Oh my God, Mistress Carrie.
I am so excited to see you. Thank you so much for saying yes to doing this interview.
Well, like I was telling you pre-interview, you look great. I look really pale and like zombie, almost zombie-like here in Nashville, Tennessee.
We work in rock and roll. We're supposed to be like in a basement, pale. Like we're not supposed to be happy and tanned. It's not what rock and roll is.
That's right. Well, here we are. Good to see you.
You too. I want to add you to the list of countless band members that I know that are now residents of Nashville. It seems like I need to move there because literally everyone else lives there.
Yeah, it's funny, man. I was in a grocery store like 8 years ago, and I'm walking down the aisle with members of Cinderella, I think, and then like, oh wait, is that Kip Winger? I think it is. And now my buddies in Hailstorm live here. Yeah, it's the Mecca.
Yeah, it's crazy. Every time I talk to a band, they're like, we're either on our way to Nashville to write and record, we just left Nashville, or we just said, screw it, and we're moving to Nashville.
Yeah, it happens. In fact, and I bet we'll get to this, but my drummer in my band, the Nixons, John, is the drummer for Seether, and they're either, I'm looking at my phone, they're either going to be here today or tomorrow to start recording their album in Nashville, Seether. So, yeah.
Well, I had a feeling they were going to start working on new music because they just announced that Tailgate tour was Stained, and we're going to have them up here a bunch. So I was like, oh, it seems like it's time.
Well, I probably maybe, broke news just then. Hopefully John won't be mad at me. Dude, we weren't announcing the album yet, but no. But I do know this, that whatever their release schedule is, my brother, John Humphrey, in the Nixons is going to be in town making some music with Seether. Whatever they do to release it, I don't know, but I'm excited because I'm going to go down to the studio and be a fly on the wall to watch some Seether happening.
When I found out that he was in the Nixons, like when I met the guys in Seether, I nerded out. And I was like, and he was like, I remember you from those old Nixon days at AAF in Boston. Like, it's so weird how people kind of cross paths in your life and then go away for a while and then come back.
I know. It's awesome. And again, this is kind of my whole life is this, right? Because like I went to, see Seether when they played when I was still living in Tulsa, and the opening band was this band called Shinedown. And John was like, you got to go listen to this singer. You're going to love him. Here we are 15 years later, and I've had, a couple songs out with Shinedown recently. And you're right, man. It's so weird. The lines they're all just crossed.
I'm getting ready to talk to Brent Smith soon because our Simple Man anniversary is coming up January 20th. The first time he played Simple Man was on my show, Acoustic, and that's what started that whole thing. And the 20th anniversary is coming up on January 20th. It doesn't seem possible.
Oh, is that right? Is that okay? So now I'm interviewing you now. So obviously that song's a massive song for that band.
The first time they did it was on my show.
Wow,
yeah.
Cool. I didn't know that. I'm gonna text Zach and Brent when we get off this thing and tell them that I just talked to you.
It was even before Zach was in the band, which is just crazy because he's been in the band for so long.
Yeah. That's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I have the original recording that I had to like digitize because it was on cassette.
Yep.
And get ready to talk to Brent about this anniversary, which just blows my mind that it's been that long.
That's awesome. I have to tell you that I was in my mom. I was home in Oklahoma, going through like a bunch of boxes, as we do, and it was actually really fun because I found like, us on the cover of Polestar back in '96, but I found a cassette that was live at WAAF. And a cassette. So I sent it to I got a buddy, Scott Whitehead, down in Dallas, and he's my guy that like helps me with like, what do I do if I have a ADAT that I don't know how to transfer, So he's sifting through all that old sound, but we did a little live thing at WAF, probably with you. I don't know. I mean, back in 95, 96.
Well, I was at the station, but I wasn't on the air then. So it was probably with John Osterland.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. The Ozone.
That was a big station for us, man. Right when the Nixons started, it was obviously Oklahoma stations like the Cat, who are, they're like one of the sort of icons, at least to me, growing up in Oklahoma. Then in Dallas, Q102, and then Chicago. But when AAF added our songs, that was like, ooh, okay, now we got something cooking here. So that's cool.
It's really hard to explain to people that are kind of growing up immersed in this new media, how it used to be before we were all connected on the internet with smartphones, and that the difference that one radio station could make, and that it started knocking over dominoes. And then all of a sudden, Brad Arnold from Three Doors Down said that when we started playing Kryptonite, it just changed his whole life. And, it's sad in a way to see the way that radio is going, but I think for somebody like you that works with so many bands, the fact that there's so many other outlets for artists now to get their music out there, podcasting including, streaming, all of these other things, as an artist and a producer, that's got to be exciting.
Yeah, I mean, people, listen, I'm a weird case study here because I was in a rock band in the 90s that had to be in a trailer for 4 years. Not a trailer, a van and a trailer for 4 years before anyone even noticed. Then a couple stations started to play our song Sister. Then we got the label bidding war thing. So I mean, I've lived through all that. And then I've lived through, my sister-in-law saying, "Hey, have you seen this show called American Idol?" And I'm like, screw that show. That's not the right way. To then fast forward to me writing with David Cook and having a single. And then I had a #1 song with Carrie Underwood, a country song with Carrie Underwood. So then I embraced American Idol. You know what I mean? Like now it's like people want to get me to bitch about TikTok and I'm like, no, listen, I've seen it all. Do it however you want to do it. I'm never going to be the person that the old man, get off my lawn, TikTok. It's whatever podcast. Yes. Do whatever you got to do, man. Do whatever you got to do.
I'm still a purist with radio, and I think live and local radio still has a really important place. But these new digital technologies, they're not going away.
Yeah.
So you just got to find a way to operate within them, because for artists, any opportunity, I mean, it's happened so many times with bands that have said, "Oh, we tried to get on the radio, but we didn't fit in some kind of label about what they thought we should sound like." And so then you had no outlet. At least now, if you're a band that crosses genres, if you're an artist that really doesn't have a home, meaning a really kind of strict line of format and definition, you can still find fans.
Yeah, that is true. And I will dovetail off what you just said about being a purist. I will tell you that because of what I do for a living now, which is I'm a songwriter in Nashville. I should have probably said that just for whoever's listening to this, I'm ZAC Malloy.
Don't worry. They know all about who you are before you started talking.
So, but what I was going to say is that I'm not only a purist about radio, like that's how I pay the bills. Like I have to have songs on the radio, and I've been lucky enough to have a song called Dead Don't Die that I co-wrote with Shinedown. This song called Blood in the Water with Aaron Jones. Those were hits on the radio. And just again, I won't get into the intricacies of it all, but that's the way you make money. I mean, I have cuts on albums. I had a song on, Tim McGraw album that didn't really earn me money. And again, I'm not going to get into the nuts and bolts of the music business, but radio singles are still very important to me, so I'm with you. And I think we're on the exact same page that I think it's like, man, we got to make sure radio stays, has a place. And then, yes, cool that there's all these other outlets.
When we would play a band a lot, some people would say, "Oh, are they paying you to play that song?" And be like, actually, no, we pay royalties to play the music that we play. So we're paying to play those songs that you think they're paying us for. And all of that licensing money is how the bands get paid. It's how they pay for the studios, the producers, all of that kind of stuff. And those radio hits still matter. I mean, you're talking about Shinedown. They have more rock radio #1 hit songs than any other band in rock, which for somebody that like me that was there in the infancy of that band, like it makes me tear up because I feel like a proud mom that I'm so proud of those guys. When I see Shinedown just broke their own record for the most #1 songs again. It's amazing.
Well, let me just tell you that I was kind of blown away when they sent me the links for, so I did mention Dead Don't Die. I also had another song with them called Atlas Falls. And Atlas Falls was the song that actually broke, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, but I think they broke Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers record, which that is fucking crazy if you think about it. Sorry, can I cuss?
You can swear. Oh, yeah. That's one of the great things about this new technology.
Exactly. There you go.
I was harnessed not being able to say fuck for 25 years.
Well, anyways, when I saw that article, I think it was a Billboard, someone sent me a link and it was like Atlas Falls Shinedown breaks I think it was their 20-something #1 song. God, man, that's so crazy that it broke Tom Petty's record. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, you're right. It's radio is still, I don't know. almost said radio's still king. I guess we can say that.
No, yeah, it's super important, especially when you are a new up and coming artist. And you named an artist like Aaron Jones, who I started talking to on the show really early on when the label was trying to break him, and he has turned into this unbelievable artist that is meshing genres like we were talking about. And there are so many other artists out there. It's like they have to get to a certain point and then radio kicks in and they never look back.
Yeah, I mean, this is, again, back in my day, you did it a certain way. And I have to say that I think Aaron has done it really the right way. Here we are in 2023. That he went out and played and like opened for bands, and that was our story. I think I told someone in an interview in like 1997, 96 or 97, when we did our first headline tour, that like I feel like we've never really done our own show. We opened for Kiss, we opened for Radiohead, we opened for Soul Asylum. Yeah. So, anyways, yes to everything everything you're talking about. Of like, it's so interesting, right? To look at the way people sort of make it. Yeah. It's super interesting to me.
Well, let's go back to kind of the beginning of your musical career, because it's such a crazy story that you ended up doing what you're doing where you're doing it. So does musical ability run in your family?
Okay. So yeah, we'll do that. We'll start at the beginning. Yeah, my Papa White, Buddy White, was a country singer and played actually here. I'm in Nashville. He played at the Grand Ole Opry in like the 50s. Like one afternoon, by the way, I'll shout out his band name, Buddy White and the Westerneers. Is that the coolest band name ever?
Nice.
Pretty good. So, but that was Buddy. When I knew my Papa, he was just working on cars in his body shop in Wewoka, Oklahoma. I grew up in a little town called Ada, Oklahoma. And so then back to the influences or whatever, country music was my grandpa, but I very early discovered, Fool in the Rain by Led Zeppelin. That song, I was like, oh, okay, this song, I get it. I know what this is. And then Van Halen and The Who. And that was sort of what influenced me as a kid growing up in small town Oklahoma. Country music was all around me, but it was rock and roll. And then going to college at the University of Oklahoma, discovering alt rock, the Cults, the Cure, REM, the Replacements, all those bands. And then, the Nixons sort of formed, and we were this sort of loud rock band. Right exact time Pearl Jam and Nirvana, the whole grunge thing. We got lumped in with that. We were like, oh, the Nixons, they're like like a kind of a knockoff of Pearl Jam, and I'll take that all day long.
That would piss some people off, but not you.
No. Nope. Don't compare me to a shitty band. How about that? So yeah, that was it. So music was a little bit in my family. My dad was a drummer. But didn't do music. No one in my family did music as a living. But now here I am.
There's a distinct difference between having musical ability, right? Being able to perform, to play other people's songs. And as you're very well aware, not only as an artist, but as a songwriter with other artists and a producer, songwriting is a completely different animal. So when did you realize you could do that?
Oh, that's a good question. I kind of know, so I just talked about, being in college, playing frat parties, sorority parties, and just doing covers, right? Just being a cover band. And then writing my first song, which was awful. The first line of my first song I ever wrote was, I put on headphones. I was listening to music and I was trying to get inspired to try to write a song. And when I put the headphones on, this will be for the kids, no, for the old people that were kids. But sometimes when you would put headphones on, or you would plug in a guitar amp, you could hear the radio. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like you could sometimes hear the static, like it would pick up a frequency. And I put on headphones, I'm holding a guitar, I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna write a song. And I could hear opera music. So the first line, I know, right? Like what radio station in Oklahoma is playing opera, but someone was. And so the first line of the first song I wrote it was like a blues kind of riff. Dun, 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 dun. I hear the opera in my headphones. I see the writing on the wall. Awful song, awful lyrics, awful. But Opera in My Headphones is the name of my publishing company now because it's the first song I ever wrote.
No way. That's why you named it that?
That's it. So
that is really cool.
So when I first knew I could write a song, I don't really know. It was around the time of the Nixons when we were just a garage, literally a garage band. We practiced in one of my buddies' garages. We just, would put up space heaters and be jamming. And, Jesse would play a riff, Ricky would play something on bass. We would kind of just kick around songs. So it was then that I thought, okay, maybe I can do this. Now I will say, fast forward to ending my career as an artist, not ending it because we're still doing it. The Nixons went out on tour last year, for God's sake. So we're still doing it, but we definitely took a break. But when I when I felt like, okay, songwriting, this could be a job. It was the end of the Nixons. I wrote with Marty Fredrickson, who's a dear friend now. We actually are business partners in a publishing company here in Nashville called the Horsemen. Marty, who wrote Jaded and a bunch of hits. When I wrote with him, when MCA Records said, ZAC, third album, we don't hear a single, right? It's that whole, wasn't that a Tom Petty lyric?
Yep.
The A&R guy said, we don't hear a single. They flew me to LA. I wrote with Marty Fredrickson, kicking and screaming the whole way. And then when I got in the room with Marty, I was like, oh, okay, this is a job. This is a gig. People actually write songs. And then ever since then, 1999, good Lord, I'm old. You mentioned Brad. I mean, I had a song on, a song called Heaven on one of their albums, and it became a thing, right? I mean, I think, Carrie, when you and I started, people, like the bands we talked about, no one thought about co-writing. What's that mean? But it's a thing now, and I think it's healthy. I really do believe that writing songs with other human beings is really my favorite thing to do, and the healthiest thing for me to do. You learn every day. You just keep getting better at it. Hopefully, I'm knocking on wood.
Well, there are certain people, like growing up, you knew about guys like a Mutt Lange or a Bob Rock because all of the rock bands worked with them. And so you kind of knew that it was a job, but none of us as music fans really understood like what those guys were bringing to the table, because to a music fan, our favorite band writes their songs and they go out and they record and they tour on those songs. But when I interview bands, I talk a lot about the writing process because, number one, I can't write songs. My musical career ended with the clarinet and the marching band in high school. And I take everything so personally that I can't imagine the process. And I'm curious to hear what it's like on your end. I can't imagine the process of taking my emotions and writing them down in a notebook or recording it on my phone or whatever, and then bringing it to my band and having them have the ability to say, yeah, that's good, or no, we're not feeling that. That kind of sucks. And then to either have something like what happened to you, the label says, we don't hear a single, we're going to send you to go write with a stranger. And then this person you don't know starts offering up an opinion on your feelings and emotions that you're trying to put in a song. That would make me angry, but I'm not a songwriter and an artist. So what is it like for you as an artist working with an outside voice and then being the outside voice for a different artist?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and it's an interesting conversation. And I have this conversation with fellow songwriters and people in bands. I get brought in, I'll say, I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I get brought into certain situations that maybe other people don't get brought into because I was in a band, right? So what I will tell you is that Marty, my first co-write, other than my bandmates, was great. He was just like, what do you want to say? Right. So I try to now when I go in, I remember working with this band in San Francisco called Dredge. Remember that band?
Yeah.
Dredge. I remember flying into San Francisco, one of my first co-writes. So okay, I'll back up. So I was ending my career as an artist, wondering what I was going to do. And Jarrett Reddick from Bowling for Soup called and said, I'm having a writer's block. Can we write some songs? I wrote a couple songs with Bowling for Soup. That got me a publishing deal with Sony. Sony then helped me facilitate my first big rock cut with the band Daughtry, Chris Daughtry, who I have a cut on his album that's coming.
He's been on the show many times, sings your praises.
I'm sure Chris is a great dude. Got a cut on his first album, a song called Used To. And that song got me a publishing deal. And that publisher, Sony, started to fly me out. They would say things like, we need you to go be the fifth member of Dredge, Three Doors Down, Blackstone Chair, So I started to do that. So to answer your question, I promise I'm getting there. Because I went through that experience with Marty, and he was very cool with me to be like, not trying to force something down my throat, which I've had that happen too. I've had writers and producers try to, write a song for me as an artist. And I just promised myself I would never do that. So what I do is just try to go in and just be a member of the band. And even when I wrote with Carrie Underwood, they flew me into Nashville. I meet with Carrie. We wrote for, I think, 2 days before she even said this. She's like, I have this idea that I think is really special. It's about how, this life is just a temporary existence and something else is going to happen. That idea became Temporary Home, which was a #1 country song. Even with her, I was real careful to not be like, speak for her. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's make sure the artist speaks for themselves. Because I was an artist.
The process of it, to me, is so fascinating because art is so personal. Not only for those of us that just are experiencing the art when it's finished, but the creator of it. And so the concept of having somebody say, I don't like that, or let's try this instead, or this isn't working. I think I would be too fragile in that creative environment to be able to take any kind of criticism when it came to something that was tied to my emotions and feelings. I think that's where you're going to get sensitive, Carrie, which she doesn't come out a lot.
Well, you bring up a good point, because I tell people that my job is as much songwriter as it is psychiatrist, right? Like you have to be careful with when you're writing with, even if just another co-writer. And that is a big part of my job. I mean, I'm going today at 1:00, I'm going to go down to Music Row and walk in with 2 other guys just like me, not artists trying to make it. And we're going to try to write a song for fill in the blank. Kenny Chesney, Tim McGraw, Blake Shelton, whatever it is. Today is a country co-write. It's 2 dudes that are very, very country, way more country than me. But when I'm with an artist, it is definitely, you have to be careful. You can't start speaking for them, as an artist, as a songwriter, as someone that wants to have their voice be heard.
I had this conversation with Jelly Roll about the way that the songwriting community kind of functions in Nashville, that you kind of set up a lunch date with a stranger and you sit down, and in 4 hours, because you made an appointment for that block of time, you try to hash out a song that, like you're saying, you are not going to turn this into a Nixons song. This is a song that then you're hoping is going to get presented to a known artist or maybe an up-and-coming artist, and then they will record it, and it'll be known as their song, but you're the one that actually wrote it.
Yeah, and also, you mentioned Jelly Roll. I wrote just a few weeks ago with the people that co-wrote his first big hit, Son of Sinner, and we were talking about Jelly and how inspiring it is that he's someone that has gone through different phases of his own musical journey, and it's just now he won. This is hilarious, and this has already been brought up, and as almost a joke that he was best new artist.
Yeah.
And he's been at it for so long. I personally have to say I love that. I just love that. When I was coming up, I remember someone saying at MCA Records coaching me about interviews, and maybe I was 25 around the time of our second album, and them saying, maybe you should say you're 23. And I kind of love it that it doesn't fucking matter anymore. It really doesn't, because of everything you were talking about, of like, they're different. There's so many different platforms, whether it's, this person just blew up on TikTok, or this person just had a viral moment on whatever. So it is cool. I'm sorry, I digressed about Jelly Roll, but I don't know him, but super cool that he's having the moment that he's having. But back to what he was telling you about, yeah, it can be a little bit factory-like here in Nashville if you let it. But again, I always will stop myself in a songwriting session and think, wait, are we sounding like songwriters now? Right? That's what you don't want to do. You want to be like, wait, what would I do if I was just writing this song for the Nixons? And I should say that plenty of times if I have an idea, I have on my phone, I have 1,343, song sort of like voice memos of just little blah, blah, blahs. Plenty of times I'll be like, well, this is for the Nixons. I am glad to have that outlet to be like, I have this song on the last Nixons EP called Dead Electric, which is just cool, two cool words to me put together, but it's not going to be a single for, Tim McGraw. What does Dead Electric mean? But it's a cool song that the Nixons embraced. And so I feel lucky about that, that I get to go to my job today and write a song and pitch it, have my publishing company pitch it to said artist. But then if I want to, after a couple drinks late tonight, I can pick up one of those guitars and just write something that's nonsensical and cool and grungy.
I never understood Nashville because growing up outside of Boston, I just always thought belt buckles, cowboy boots, there's probably a cow walking down Main Street, until I went to Nashville a few years ago and just realized that, like New Orleans, it really is a city that is built on the foundation of music and creativity. And so once I actually went to Nashville and walked around, I was like, oh my God, I love this place. It's just, It's got that vibe.
Well, a buddy of mine told me, so I grew up in Oklahoma, and about 15 years ago decided, as I was entering into this new career as a songwriter, producer, I need to move out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I dearly love Tulsa. I love Oklahoma. It will always be home, but I knew I had to move, right? And we went to LA, my wife and I, and very quickly realized we did not want to spend $1 million for a small house overlooking the 405. But I had a friend of mine tell me something interesting. And to your point about Nashville, he said, this is kind of a bit of a mentor of mine that has been in the music business forever. He said, man, you should think about Nashville. Here's the way I think of music, the music business. New York is the music business with suits, with the business of it all. LA is the music business and it's producers, it's production, it's the production value. And Nashville is the music business and it's based on the song. It's based on songwriting, songwriters. Now that's a huge glossing over because there are great songwriters in LA and New York. Don't get me wrong.
It makes sense though.
But it's the song. This town runs on songs and songwriting. And so to your point, yeah, it's pretty touristy downtown, but man, there are some amazing songwriters in this town. And on any given minute, there's something magical happening just on that block and that block and that block. And I could walk out my front door in my little neighborhood here in Nashville. And well, in fact, I should just say, the guy across the street from me is Cage the Elephant's tour manager. So it's just that. This town is all about that. You know,
Yeah.
My son went to a school here in town, and Jude, my who's now studying music at NYU. He
Of course,
says,
his name is Jude, by the way.
Yeah, Jude is my youngest. Ben is my oldest, who, by the way, went to Tufts in Boston. I don't want to leave the Boston of it all out. I've spent a lot of time in Boston these last few years. He's graduated from Tufts in Boston now. But so Jude, this is back to the Nashville of it all. We go watch Jude at songwriter night at his high school. Of course, his high school in Nashville has songwriter night. And sitting next to him is Karina Gill, Vince Gill, Amy Grant, Audrey McGraw, Tim McGraw, and Lily Black, Clint Black. So I told Jude, I'm sorry I didn't give you a good enough last name, Malloy. Jude Malloy, that doesn't compete with the McGraws and the Gills. But no, that's the funny thing about Nashville. All that magic I talked about is happening, but then also it is really just the music just weaves through this whole town, and it's really beautiful, I think.
You talk about Jelly Roll, and he accepts his Best New Artist award at the CMAs and laughed that he's 37 and accepting that award. And you talk about how now it doesn't matter. Something else has changed since you and I met in the mid-90s when it comes to music, and you've worked with so many artists that this affected that I really want to hear it from your perspective. When I got on the radio in the late 90s and actually had my own show, I was the only woman. And when a radio station, they always wanted a woman, but once they had one, they only needed the one. And in rock, if we were playing a rock band on the radio that had a female lead singer, there was only room for the one. The songs even got coded with like an F, so it meaning female, so that two female-fronted bands didn't play next to each other because they thought that might affect the perception that the station didn't have balls enough. You have been in a position now where you've gone from the Nixons breaking in that era to now producing artists like Lizzie Hale and Lilith Czar, where you are on the front lines of seeing what women are doing in rock today. It couldn't be any more different.
Oh, no. Listen, Carrie, what you're talking about is really, really, really interesting to me, intriguing. Okay, I'll start by saying this. When I first moved to Nashville, I worked with an artist. I won't say their name, but she, country artist, just got a record deal, but no guarantees that her album was going to come out. And it didn't come out. And she told me a couple stories, one of which was some people in country radio had said, maybe if you bleach your hair blonde, you would have a better chance. I'm just going to leave that right there. And that's not calling out country radio, because there are a bunch of great people at country radio and they've been very good to me.
It's just different now.
But now listen to me, man. I produced Plush, this song called Left Behind, with those four powerhouse girls.
Look, where does Mariah's voice come from, by the way?
Oh my God. Don't even, man. She is she is, what do they say? Like, small pack, dynamite, small package, she's this little beautiful, beautiful chick, and her voice is amazing. And then I'll just say this, that like, to me, to have a 4-piece rock band like Plush, to have a single that I had come out this year called Terrible Things, which was Hailstorm featuring Ashley McBryde. I'm talking to what you're talking about, which is, and I'm not some sort of, feminist, spokesperson, but man, it's come so far in the time that I moved here. That story I just told you, that not so great story, conformed to this. Now it's like, what? Lizzie can have, Hailstorm can have a song featuring Ashley McBryde. Couldn't be more of a country girl. I think it's fucking awesome. It's really great. And yeah, we always joke about it with, so my publishing, this little thing I have called the Four Horsemen, which is Marty Fredrickson, myself, Blair Daly, and Scott Stevens, who Scott was in the band, the X's, who I took out on the road in the Nixons a million years ago. We joke about how, you got a female fronted rock band. We're your guys. We're your team, because we've written, we had hits with Lilith, Juliet, who's dear to me too.
Badass.
She's amazing. Had cuts with her husband's band, Black Veil Brides. But we went to Louder Than Life last year, and it was so cool. Like the Four Horsemen watching in the crowd, Lilith playing our song Anarchy, and then we walk over and watch Hailstorm playing I had a song with Hailstorm called I Like It Heavy, and there they are rocking that shit, and then New Year's Day and Dorothy, we had Dorothy's highest charting song, Rest in Peace. And so female fronted rock band, this is the advertisement. We're your guys. Come to the Four Horsemen music if you want, you want a hit rock song.
And 25 years ago, that would not have been a career pitch.
I know.
And it's shocking to me, like, having been, sometimes traveling around and being able to see the world is one way to get experience. There's something to be said for standing still and watching everything change from a fixed point. And because I was at AAF for so long, ending up being the assistant program director before it got sold, I had that vantage point of watching the world change from the same seat. And for women like me, this is what we've been waiting for. Like, we've been waiting so long for this.
Well, for the record, this is my life. I just typed into my my notes in my phone, standing still, watching the world go round around you. So you just gave me my latest song title. That'll be a big. No, but it is very cool what you just said, because wow, yeah, you and I have an interesting perspective because we've seen the music business through all these phases. And yes, to what you just said of watching the world go round. And by the way, I should say the fact that I think was Hailstorm, I think that number one song, what was their first big hit? There was some stat that's a sad stat, but a cool stat, that it was the first female fronted active rock band to hit number one, maybe ever, or maybe since Pat Benatar, or whatever. There's some stat that's super sad. I'll also say Aaron Jones was the first person of color to have a number one song. And all that to say, yes, here we are, me and you, been doing this since the 90s, somehow still in it. I count my blessings.
Me too.
But yeah, man, that's a great concept for, like, you can go out there and you can explore the world. And I encourage my kids to go to Europe and go, I encourage any young person to go see the world and experience other cultures and all that stuff. But yeah, you and me, in some ways, sitting still in the middle of it and just watching it all go around, that's pretty cool. And I will now, since you just enlightened me, I'll count that as another blessing, that, like, man, I've gotten to see a lot of shit.
Yeah.
You both.
I asked Billy Corrigan this question because as much as I hate to say these words out loud, a lot of that music from the 90s is now considered classic rock. And those bands are now eligible for induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What is it about the music that came out of the 90s? Because if you had asked someone then, and I remember someone saying, oh yeah, what, is this Pearl Jam band going to be the next Led Zeppelin? Yes, now, yes. But what is it about those years that just generated so much iconic rock and roll?
Man, $1 million question. And I mean, if we had the answer, we could recreate it, I guess. I mean, you could start a label.
Right.
But the answer is, gosh, and I do have this conversation with fellow songwriters, which is, is there some kid sitting in his mom's basement right now with a Les Paul writing the next great rock song? I hope so.
I hope so too.
I hope so. But whatever happened at that time, and I do feel pretty lucky. I'm glad to be talking to you about this. I feel like I'm working through some emotions. No, but
you're not the only person that's ever said this show is like a therapy session.
No, but it's interesting because, right, the 80s were this sort of little glitzier time. And I'm not just talking music, I'm talking everything. It was, the 80s were, flashy cars, and then, at least for me, I'll put it in my context, my context, which is college rock band covering REM, The Cult, The Cure, like I said, and then writing songs and then watching Under a Blood Red Sky, U2, and seeing these, this music that was happening that was different. I think maybe all those bands, and gosh, Scott Weiland's birthday was just yesterday. All those bands that came from that time, I don't know. You tell me. You saw it even probably better than me because you saw these bands coming in and out of AAF. But like what I saw out on the road was just a bunch of dudes that were a little bit less about anything other than the music, other than just the songs, and like turn the guitar up loud. There was this great quote from Slash that he said, Guitar Magazine was like quizzing him about his guitar setup. What's your pedal board look like? And he goes, what? I plug into a tuner and into a Marshall amp. That's all, just a tune. And I really appreciate that. And so maybe that's, Guns N' Roses is not a grunge band, but maybe they were a little bit, and we just didn't know it. But all those bands seemed like they were just making music for the purest of reasons, the most pure reasons. I don't know. I don't know the answer, Carrie.
When Slash came on the show, I told him that he had one of the most iconic guitar tones ever. And he was surprised and took that as like this wholehearted compliment. And I was like, how do you not know that? Like, how do you not know that we hear one note of Sweet Child of Mine and it's like, oh, it's Slash, obviously. Like,
Carrie, don't even get me started. So the Nixons, one of our first tours was we opened for Slash's Snake Pit when he was out on that tour. Remember the band? Remember that band? And so fast forward to a year and a half ago, my wife, who her favorite band's Rage. So, she's cool as hell, way cooler than me. But she randomly said, I wonder if Guns N' Roses is still good live. Like that was the random question that you have with your significant other. And so I got on YouTube and I watched them play. And around her birthday, I Googled it. They were playing in Peru, in Lima. And so Jen and I, my wife, decided, you know what? For your birthday, we're going to Peru. So last October we went. We did all the other touristy stuff like Machu Picchu and all those other things. But I just remember, I'll never forget, I saw Guns N' Roses at Texas Stadium, with the Smithereens and INXS when I was a kid. Fast forward to touring with Slash and then seeing them last year at a stadium in Lima, Peru. And that guitar. I mean, again, I'm digressing, but back to your point of what made that music great. I don't know, man. I think Slash's guitar tone might be a big part of it. Because all those guys, I mean, they must have loved that shit. I mean, that's just great guitar. It is funny to hear you say that he was surprised, but
yeah, he said he was in a constant search for the perfect tone, and I'm like, I hate to discourage you from future work, but you kind of already climbed Everest, Slash.
Exactly. Yeah. That, just that little, for Welcome to the Jungle, which by the way, Peruvians love that shit, man. I've never seen a crowd. So,
they love their metal down there, man. All the bands talk about it.
They love it. They love it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, look, how many Kiss tributes, how many stories have we seen online around the final dates at Madison Square Garden of all of the bands that were inspired because of those guys? I mean, where would rock be without them?
I don't know if you can see this. So just real quick, this is that's me.
Oh my God.
So that's backstage at Madison Square Garden in 1996. We just posted that on our Nixons Instagram that we opened for them at Madison Square Garden in the 90s, and to think about them ending that journey and Scott Stevens, my buddy in the X's, posted yesterday too. I thought it was really kind of a neat tribute to how they influenced people. And I will say this, I remember Gene Simmons sort of not dissing, but kind of saying something about shoegaze and they're way more about the show. The Nixons were too. So to say we were influenced by Kiss is not exactly right, but kind of. We would light the stage on fire. We would smash guitars. Why? Because we were playing at these, bars and no one was paying attention. So I think there's something pretty beautiful about what you just said, that that band definitely influenced people to put on a show.
If you got the chat open, I just posted a picture that I found from my childhood that I posted because of the Kiss farewells. How did they not know I was going to end up the way that I did?
Man. That is awesome, man. That is awesome. I love that.
I think that's like the third grade or something, with rosary beads tied around my head, black lipstick, and the Muppets and Kiss hanging on my wall.
Perfect.
How did they not know?
Man. That is perfect.
I ask every songwriter this question that comes on the show because it's not a favorite song question, and you're going to be the perfect person to answer it. But because I have such respect for the process of songwriting, is there a song that, if you were to look up the definition of songwriting in the dictionary, is a perfect example of songwriting for you? A song that you think is so perfectly crafted that you wish you wrote it?
Oh, man.
I mean, for music fans, it's nearly impossible because we love so much music.
How did you do this to me, Carrie? I have an answer.
I ask everybody this question, and the answers are always interesting.
I do have an answer, and I'll also say this: I teach a class at Oklahoma State University. I went to Oklahoma University, so it's our bitter rival. I teach a class called songwriting on Zoom. I didn't move back to Stillwater, Oklahoma, but I teach this class, and I ask these kind of questions. What's the perfect song? So you ask me this question, and I'm going to give you an answer, and I'm sorry I'm going to cheat a little bit because Sweet Child of Mine, I'm not saying it because we just talked about Slash, but that riff, the bass when it comes in, the lyrics, which are so universal, she's got a smile, seems to me, it's about as perfect as you can get. But I'm going to also digress a little bit into country because I do work in this world. And I'm going to name check one song, He Stopped Loving Her Today, and go listen to it if you haven't heard it. It's amazing. It's a George Jones song, and it's about how he said he'd never stop loving her, and he died, and that's when he stopped loving her. He stopped loving her today, on the day he died. I'm going to name check that one, but I'm going to give you a slightly longer, but not too long. There's a song called In Color by Jamie Johnson, and that's the song that when I heard it, it's the verses are, Grandpa, what's that picture here? It's all black and white. It ain't real clear. Is that you? My grandpa said, yeah, I was 11. And if it looks like we were scared to death, just a couple kids trying to save each other, you should have seen it in color. To me, that idea of like a kid looking at a black and white picture. So now I think I'm maybe connecting our whole conversation about the olden days of touring in a van and a trailer, but a black and white picture. Some people listening to this won't even know that is a thing. But to say you should have seen it in real life, you should have seen it in color. I don't know. That's about as perfect of a song. And I was just texting with one of the co-writers, Lee Miller, who wrote it with Jamie Johnson. That's an obscure reference, so sorry to some of the listeners that are like, what is this? Zach?
Look, I'm not a country music fan. It's not. My husband loves it. It's like, it's a fight he and I have daily because I say he has terrible taste in music. He says I have terrible taste in music, but even I know that song.
Yeah, I guess the point of my answer is that, and this will boil it down to who I am as a songwriter, is mostly about lyrics. Again, the riff of Sweet Child of Mine is there's even stories, there's even mythology about that riff, and people can go Google it. It was an exercise, but I'll stop. But to me, man, lyrics, I've had people come up to me in my life and say, the Nixons song Sister, we played it at my sister's memorial. That song kept me connected to my sister when she moved overseas. The lyrics, I think maybe we've boiled me down to here in the last minutes of this interview that like the lyrics are just so important to me, and it's that lyric. You should have seen it in color, and me and you saw it. We saw it all. So that's a great song. Go listen to it.
Before I let you go, you already let it slip a little bit that the Seether guys are working on new music. So I'm going to prod you a little bit. Are there some new artists that are working on music now that maybe we're going to be hearing from, that we could have heard about them from you first? Or are there artists that are getting ready to work on new music that we know that are working with you? Give me the dirt, Zach.
Well, so to answer your question, all the bands that I've mentioned on this interview, I'm getting ready to write with again. We're going to do some more stuff with Shinedown, and I'll answer it like this. And man, I hate to be this guy, but I'm very excited that the Nixons. I'm just going to plug myself now.
No, that was going to be my last question, was for you to be able to plug what's going on with the Nixons, because I know you guys got stuff going on.
Well, there's nothing that I can specifically say other than I've written songs with Plush that may be coming. I'm getting ready to write more with Shinedown and with all the bands I just mentioned. I'm not working with Seether. Sean he's kind of a machine. So, but they are doing some stuff. But I will say that one of the things I'm most excited about is the Nixons. We just released a single last Friday called December. It was a song from our second album. We rewrote it, redid it, and it came out with Pavement Music, which is a great company in Chicago. I know you know them. Mm-hmm. That's Plush's home, and that's how I met the people at Pavement. And now we're actually in a little bit of a partnership with the Nixons, and we are writing new music ourselves that we'll be releasing next year. So yeah, I mean, a bunch of stuff coming. The reason I can't give you a specific answer is I'm writing with like 100 people, always. So it's all coming, Carrie.
If the new music from the Nixons is coming, does that mean a tour? Does that mean we might actually get to hang out in person again?
That would be amazing, man. I think you and I texted back and forth or something. We played Boston with Everclear. The Nixons did last summer. We did Everclear and Fastball and the Nixons, and it was a blast. First time we've really gone back out, talked to other old friends of mine about doing dates, and nothing booked, but you just, click over there to Instagram and follow the Nixons official, and you never know.
Before I let you go, of course, the holidays. What's your favorite holiday tradition? What do you look forward to the most? Is it a food? Is it the music? What is it?
I don't know what this says about me, but for whatever reason, you just said that. green bean casserole? That's such a bad answer. That's such an awful answer. Like,
it's not though. If it's the only time of year you eat it.
No, man. So I'll just tell you, we went to some friend's house for the holidays a few years ago, and they said, "Is there anything that we need to have?" And we said green bean casserole, and they made it, but it wasn't the same. I grew up in a small town in Oklahoma, and it was just canned green beans and those crunchy,
the onions.
Onion rings. Yeah. So, gosh, that's you so wish I would have said it's holding my dearest, family members close in the cold, cold weather in front of a fireplace. No, it's the green bean casserole.
It's always the food, man. Christmas to me is lasagna. I make it once a year. I make it on Christmas.
There you go.
That's what it tastes like.
There you go. There you go.
It was so good to see you. I'm so glad that you agreed to do this, and I'm so grateful for your time. And I couldn't be happier that a band that I loved so much, that was part of that, early years at AAF for me, even before they gave me my own microphone, right? When I was just handing out the bumper stickers at Nixons shows, to see you turn your career into something where you're working with every band I'm playing on the radio, with every band that I have on my show. It's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, listen, man, I really do feel blessed and I do not take it for granted. I do want that to be said. And I have to say, I have these conversations not very often, but got to reconnect with Matt Pinfield at a festival in Oklahoma, and to sit with him, and we did an interview much like this. And for me to remind him that he uttered the words, this next band on 120 Minutes, the Nixons, I just saw, here in New York City, and then to be talking to you and to think about playing at Mama Kin's in Boston and playing in we opened for Kiss at whatever the arena was called at the time.
Yeah, the Garden. Yeah.
Yeah, to think about that, and to be now here, I am at age 50 something. No, and listen, man, and I will just say right back at you, good for you. I know a lot of people that were working alongside me and you that aren't in music anymore. They've got other jobs, and God bless them and good for them. I feel like the luckiest dude in the world. Are you kidding? I get to just figure out what rhymes with love again today. That's my job. That's my job. Someone pays me, and someone's paying you to spread the word of rock and roll and music and songwriting. So good. I'm just telling you, good for you, and congrats to you as well.
That. I appreciate that. I took stock in it and tried to figure out what other marketable skills I have besides that, and there aren't any. So I'm glad that I found a way to make a living doing it.
No, listen, man, when the Nixons broke up and I was sort of standing there looking around, I can't do anything else other than music, right? So it's pretty great. Pretty great. We're the lucky ones, right?
Yeah, if the path doesn't exist, grab a machete. That's what I tell everybody. Like, figure it out. Grab a machete and make the path.
Shit. That's my second song title.
You're welcome. Just a little footnote in the credits. I just want a little itty bitty little note there.
Yeah, I love that. Standing still, watching the world go round. That's probably going to be the first song I pitch today in my writing session at 1 p.m.
Thank you so much.
You rock, Carrie. Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
There he is, the one and only ZAC MALOY from the Nixons. You can find the 2023 version of December, the latest release from the Nixons, on the corresponding playlist for this episode. I make a playlist for every full-length episode of the Mistress Carrie podcast that's filled with my guest music and all the artists and songs that we referenced in the interview. You'll find it linked in the show notes, alongside all of Zach's links, all the Nixons links, and all of my links as well. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the Mistress Carrie podcast. New full-length episodes come out every Wednesday, plus every weekday I run down all of your rock news and music headlines in around 5 minutes with the sit rep. And you never know when we're going to release a bonus episode. You can find me live every Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern on my official Facebook page for my video show, Cocktails in the War Room. And of course, you can always track me down on the radio. Get the details on all of that and more at MistressCarrie.com. And don't forget to do a little post-holiday shopping just in case Santa didn't bring you what you wanted under the tree. The Mistress Carrie Podcast, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network.